Hi, welcome to the Crypto Republic. Before we begin today, if you're serious about staying ahead in this once-in-a-lifetime financial shift, make sure you like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic. Hello, XRP Army, and welcome back to the Crypto Republic, your go-to channel for the latest energy updates in digital assets. Before we get started with today's business, make sure to smash that like button, ring that bell, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic, bringing you updates every day at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And here at the Crypto Republic, we give you the bird's eye view, a satellite perspective to spot the big picture shifts while everyone else is stuck in daily chaos. Just a reminder, this video is for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. Listen to me very carefully. If you are tuning into traditional financial media right now, you're being fed a diet of noise, panic, and obsolete economic theory. Let that sink in. My mandate as a financial mercenary has always been to cut through the noise. We are currently navigating one of the most profound geopolitical and macroeconomic transitions in modern history. Let that sink in. The tectonic plates of the global order are shifting violently. And if you want to protect and grow your capital in the decade ahead, we need to completely recalibrate how you understand power, currency markets, and crucially, the digital plumbing of money itself. Because what I'm going to lay out for you today isn't just a macro thesis on the death of hyperglobalization. It's a mathematical breakdown of why the legacy financial system is physically breaking under geopolitical pressure, and exactly why XRP, the anointed one, is not just a cryptocurrency, but the only functional institutional grade utility capable of solving the acute liquidity crisis we are about to face. We're going to talk about XRP, the anointed one, in every single phase of this transition, starting right now. The post-World War II rules-based global order is dissolving. Hyperglobalization is dead. We are reverting to a historical mean, a paradigm defined by raw state power, nationalism, and sovereign self-interest. Is this ruthless new game of imperial survival, capital markets are inextricably linked to geopolitical warfare, and right now in the middle of this is the United States. You've heard the narrative. The U.S. is a fading paper tiger. The empire is collapsing. As an institutional financial mercenary and analyst driven purely by data, I am telling you flat out, this thesis is garbage. It's worth ungats. The United States is not in a terminal retreat. It is aggressively recalibrating. It is transitioning from a quiet, cooperative hegemon to a ruthless protector of its own balance sheet. Write that down. Write that down. But here's the massive friction point, and where XRP, the anointed one, enters the picture immediately as the U.S. flexes its muscles, weaponizes its currency, and forces allies to step up. Global cross-border payments are becoming weaponized and fragmented. The old SWIFT system, the correspondent banking network, is a relic of the cooperative globalization era. It takes days to settle. It requires trillions of dollars trapped in nostro and vostro accounts just to facilitate trade. In a fragmented, hostile world, trapped capital is a death sentence. And this is why XRP, the anointed one, underlining technology, is not a speculative bet. It is a macroeconomic necessity. When trust between nations evaporates, you need a trustless, neutral bridge asset that settles value in 3 to 5 seconds. From the jump, you need to understand XRP, the anointed one, is the technological counterbalance to a geopolitical fractured world. Let's look at where the shift is most obvious, the Middle East and the broader greater power competition with China. Right now, U.S. actions against Iran are constantly framed by the media through this binary lens of simplistic mortality. But tactically, this is a multi-decade geopolitical chess match. The objective is to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran, which would solidify an unassailable Russia-China-Iran axis. The U.S. is applying preemptive economic engagement, economic blockades, targeted strikes, enforcing red lines. And this is deeply intertwined with China. China requires massive energy imports to survive. By controlling or threatening the flow of oil from places like Iran and Venezuela, the U.S. holds a knife to Beijing's economic throat. We are watching high-stakes decoupling. But look at the mechanics of this decoupling. As these massive superpowers try to untangle their supply chains, China controlling rare earths, the U.S. controlling semiconductors and energy distributions. How is the money actually moving? It's moving through an archaic system that assumes everyone is friends. Correspondent banking requires banks to hold pre-funded accounts in the destination country's currency. Imagine you are trying to secure a highly contested supply chain for critical pharmaceutical ingredients from Asia, but you have to park billions of dollars in a dormant foreign accounts just to ensure liquidity. In an era where a geopolitical strike can freeze assets overnight, parking capital in a foreign jurisdiction is an unacceptable risk, ladies and gentlemen. Write that down. That's massive. I hammer this into family offices and anyone that retains any capacity every day about why. This is exactly why XRP, the Anointed One, is the ultimate institutional solution. XRP's Anointed One, on-demand liquidity, ODL, now just known as Ripple Payments, eliminates the need for pre-funded Nostro Vostro accounts entirely. Do you grasp the magnitude of this, ladies and gentlemen? I don't think anyone does. Most people are watching videos about XRP Vegas, XRP, blah, 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 blah. If you're here with us in the Wolfpack, we don't talk about hype. We talk about what financial mercenaries need to understand the most about how it's going to help our financial well-being, our trading account, and a banking account. None of this is financial advice, ladies and gentlemen. Just my opinion and retention and capacity. Do you grasp the magnitude of this, I ask you? In a world where the U.S. and China are aggressively rebalancing trade, where capital controls are tightening, XRP, the Anointed One, allows a corporate entity or a central bank to convert fiat into XRP, the Anointed One, move it across the world in 3 seconds, and convert it instantly into the local currency. No trapped capital, no counterparty risk hanging in the balance for 3 days while the wire clears. XRP, the Anointed One, provides the agility required to survive a fractured global economy. When supply chains are weaponized, speed of settlement is your ultimate defense. Ladies and gentlemen, the BRICS has declared war on the dollar system. Why, in previous videos, I said XRP, the Anointed One, was the solution. I just gave you my core thesis. Write that down, ladies and gentlemen, because this war is not going anywhere. This brings us to the most misunderstood topic in finance today, de-dollarization and the BRICS nation. Remember when I had the map, the east and the west side of the tranche? Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be taking notes. Every day, pundits predict the death of the U.S. dollar. They look at Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa and say, this is the end. Let me give you the unvarnished truth. The BRICS coalition lacks the cohesive economic architecture to challenge U.S. hegemon. The bloc is fundamentally fragmented. China and India despise each other. Emerging markets like Brazil face deep political instability. And Russia didn't choose to de-dollarize. The dollar system left them because of Western sanctions. The reality is the world is structurally short of U.S. dollars. True de-dollarization is a myth because money isn't just a medium of exchange, ladies and gentlemen. It's the ultimate instrument of geopolitical power. Write that down. Let that sink in. Rewind this if you have to, because I can't believe we're giving this away for free. But here is where the macro data perfectly intersects with XRP, the Anointed One. Critics point to U.S. dollar swap lines, where the U.S. lends dollars to foreign central banks during times of stress, as a sign of systematic fragility. Wrong. If you thought that, you got ungats. They are brilliant mechanisms of financial hegemony. As financial mercenaries, we pay attention to what no one does. That's the edge. When the UAE or a European bank takes a swap line, it creates future demand for U.S. dollars. It binds them to the American financial apparatus. But the friction in executing and settling these massive cross-border liquidity injections is immense. The current rails are inefficient. XRP, the Anointed One, does not exist to destroy the U.S. dollar. I need you to hear that clearly. XRP, the anointed one, exists to make the dollar and all global currencies infinitely more efficient, ladies and gentlemen. Write down what I just said. Think about it. As the world remains structurally short of dollars, nations and institutions desperately need seamless access to USD liquidity. XRP, the anointed one, is the ultimate neutral bridge asset. If a fragmented nation needs to settle a debt in dollars, but doesn't have direct access to efficient correspondent banking lines, XRP acts as the intermediary. It bridges the illiquid fiat to the highly liquid dollar in seconds for fractions of a penny. Ripple has effectively built the technological upgrade for the global swap lines. The U.S. doesn't need to fear XRP, the anointed one. The U.S. financial apparatus will eventually rely on XRP, the anointed one, the ledger, to facilitate its monetary hegemony in a digitized world. You really have to understand what that means. And if you're new here, ladies and gentlemen, I don't do fancy graphs, charts. This is the PhD out of PhD classes. I salute you for you're going through this because you're actually going to learn something. Because if the world inevitably runs back to the greenback during systematic liquidity crises, the rails they used to run back to will be built upon blockchain technology that is ISO 222 compliant, and XRP, the anointed one, is the gold standard for that compliance. You have to understand, this is what I drill into people that retain any capacity. This is what I have been explaining to long-term members of the Wolfpack and viewers of the Republic, the Crypto Republic, why there was an east and west side and what was going on. Why, when this war began against the US dollar and the treasury system, why XRP is the anointed one, and why I said all of Ripple's moves intertwined it. Again, we're going to keep moving forward, but you got to understand something. XRP is not exit liquidity. And if you're looking at it like that, complain in the section below and I'll answer you. But with that being said, I got to add another layer to this. We're seeing a rapid proliferation of stablecoins. Some people think crypto threatens fiat. Nonsense, blah, 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 blah. Dollar-backed stablecoins are effectively exporting the U.S. dollar demand to billions of people globally who have no access to the American banking system. Stablecoins are the new euro-dollar system. We went over this in other videos. They are entrenching dollar dominance, but you cannot have a global network of stable coins issued by different entities on different chains, governed by different jurisdictions, without an interoperable ledger and a universal bridge asset. The XRP anointed one's ledger, XRPL, was explicitly designed for this. It has a built-in decentralized exchange, DEX. It is tailor-made to issue, trade, and settle stablecoins and central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, instantly. XRP is the liquidity lubricant that allows this new Eurodollar system to function without seizing up. That is why it is the anointed one. I could give you a million reasons of why. You're getting it all here right now. This is probably one of the biggest videos I'm ever going to drop about my why and my recce. Again, we need this system to work because the physical economy is entering a period of severe, violent disruption. We are nearing the end of an era at the Federal Reserve. We are moving from highly discretionary communication, heavy policy, to a hawkish, rule-based framework. This will reduce market volatility from the central bank side. But the physical world, the supply chains, they are fractured. Look at the maritime choke points, the Strait of Hormuz, the Red Sea. We're no longer dealing with minor shipping delays. The Strait of Malacca. We are facing acute supply shocks. That one's coming up in the future. We are talking about fertilizers, critical minerals, and specialized commodities like helium, which is absolutely vital for semiconductor manufacturing. A sustained disruption guarantees cascading failures across global manufacturing. This means we are witnessing the death of the law of one price. Write that down. You got to let that sink in. During peak globalization, a barrel of oil costs roughly the same globally. Not anymore. Throw the Big Mac index out. As supply chains fractured into regionalized, heavily defended corridors, commodity prices will diverge widely based on geography. Energy will be cheap in secure regions like North America and cripplingly expensive in Europe and Asia. How does a global corporation manage procurement when the price of wheat or oil swings widely depending on the geographic corridor and when the physical delivery is constantly under threat? They need real-time programmable money. If a supply chain reroutes instantly, the capital needs to reroute instantly. Legacy banking cannot do this. If a shipment of helium has to be diverted from the Middle East to a supplier in South Africa or South America, the payment settlement cannot take 3 days while the ship waits at a port burning capital. The settlement must happen concurrently with the physical rerouting. XRP, the Anointed One, is the only institutional-grade utility that solved this specific real-world supply chain friction. Its use case goes far beyond retail trading. It is the enterprise solution for the death of the law of one price. It allows multinational corporations with localized supply chains to maintain absolute pricing power and capital efficiency, even when the world is burning around them. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand this is my core thesis of everything about why XRP is the Anointed One. We can frame this entire geopolitical unraveling through the lens of the fourth turning theory. We are at the climax of an 80-year secular cycle. Old institutions are collapsing. A new societal order is being born. The U.S. is recalibrating. The volatility is not random. It is the predictable friction of a changing global architecture. In this new era, the global energy map is being permanently redrawn. The reliance on the Persian Gulf is declining. The U.S. is expanding its dominance as a premier energy exporter. Energy independence is the foundational prerequisite for national security. But as the U.S. exports energy, how are these massive, complex, multinational energy contracts going to be settled in a digitized, fourth-turning economy? Energy markets deal in millions of microtransactions, grid recalibrations, and massive bulk settlements. As we move heavily into a nuclear energy, renewable infrastructure, and advanced fossil fuels, the energy grids themselves will become tokenized. The XRP, the Anointed Ledger, is perfectly positioned to handle this massive throughput of tokenized commodity and energy trade. It is a carbon neutral. It is incredibly cheap to operate, and it settles instantly. Whether you connect the macro data, the shift to U.S. energy dominance, the fourth turning institutional collapse, the need for immediate trustless settlement, XRP, the Anointed One, stands alone as the bridge over the widening geopolitical chasm. I want you to understand something, ladies and gentlemen. Given this complex, often hostile macroeconomic backdrop, my mandate as a financial mercenary is to tell you how to strategically deploy capital, not financial advice, just my own opinion, and it retains any capacity. How do we survive this local instability in emerging markets? How do we protect against the massive import inflation hitting the global south? My investment thesis, not financial advice, just my own personal opinion, and anyone retains any capacity, is defensively structured, yet highly optimistic about 3 to 4 specific assets that thrive in a fragmented world. Here is the precise allocation for the decade ahead, not financial advice, just my opinion. First, blue chip U.S. equities, multinationals with fortified balance sheets and localized supply chains. The U.S. is an economic fortress. Betting against America is a fundamentally flawed strategy. Second, gold. As sovereign nations weaponize financial networks, gold reasserts itself as the premier neutral reserve asset. Third, hard real estate, durable, hedge against sticky inflation and the erosion of fiat purchasing power. Fourth, short duration U.S. treasuries, capturing risk-free yield while maintaining liquidity to pivot when market dislocations occur. Fifth, hard economies. Fifth, hard commodities, direct exposure to energy, agriculture, and base metals to capitalize on regional supply deficits. And finally, acting as the ultimate digital overlay to this entire portfolio. XRP, the Anointed One. Why XRP, the Anointed One, alongside gold, real estate, and treasuries? Because with gold is the physical neutral asset of the past and present. XRP, the Anointed One, is the digital neutral asset of the future, while U.S. treasuries represent the ultimate sovereign debt. XRP, the Anointed One, represents the ultimate settlement rails. You understand that the world is moving from hyperglobalization to regionalized fortresses. If you understand that the U.S. dollar is not dying, but evolving into a digitalized, stablecoin-driven network. If you understand that supply chains are breaking and trapped capital is a liability, then you mathematically must conclude that the world requires a high-speed, low-cost, decentralized bridge asset to connect these fractured fortresses. XRP, the anointed one, is the only asset that has spent the last decade building the regulatory compliance, the institutional partnerships, and the technological framework like ODL and the XRPL-DEX to step into this exact macroeconomic void. It is the solution for mass adoption, not because the retail investors want to buy coffee with it, but because the global banking system and supply chain networks literally cannot function in this new reality without it. That's why I said, to me, XRP and Ripple is like General Patton giving his plan to save the day. I said this in a video. I'll say it again. The United States possesses unparalleled advantages, and the U.S. dollar remains the definitive economic safe harbor. But the rails that carry the power are changing forever. We will continue to navigate this transition with absolute precision. We will protect our assets and anyone that trades any capacity against the volatility, and we will aggressively capture the opportunities born from this global restructuring. Do not get shaken out by the media's noise and blah, 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 blah. Understand the macro reality so you don't get cut up like sushi. Understand the plumbing. Position yourselves accordingly, ladies and gentlemen. Stay sharp. Stay objective. I'll see you on the other side and in the front lines. Don't get cut up like sushi and stay Gucci. None of this is financial advice, just my own opinion. Anyone retains any capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope everyone's having a great Saturday afternoon. That was my entire thesis of why XRP is the anointed one. It stretches from my own feelings about the great recalibration that is coming. I spend countless hours talking to family offices, hedge funds, sovereigns, a host of everyone that retains any capacity by whatever economic and corporate structure they go by, about why. I've been a financial mercenary since I'm 15 years old. All I know is financial warfare. If you made it to this part of the video, I salute you. Welcome to the Wolf Pack. Again, write this statement down. The great recalibration, why the dollar, the global order, and XRP, the anointed one, are about to collide. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome all the new members of the membership channel, all the new members of our Patreon. Remember, one good tip from the pits can easily pay for your entire year subscription. If you want the deeper macro research and learn how to take advantage of all this, come and join over 535 active traders and investors in the Patreon, the Crypto Republic Desk Monthly. Welcome to all the new members joining us. That is where we tie all this together, and we're teaching people. Doesn't matter if you're brand new, doesn't matter if you're a veteran. Again, in these times and these opportunities that are being given to us, it's life-changing events that are going on. I want to bring something to everyone's attention about why we're paying attention to this. India is repatriating more gold from the BOE. Ladies and gentlemen, in a world where the global monetary system is breaking down, it's gone. We firmly believe that if gold is not in your possession, then it's not your gold. Same way, not your keys, not your crypto. India has sharply increased the share of its reserves held domestically. They don't want it being held overseas anymore. And again, this is all happening as China hoards more gold on warrant and rumors of HQLA and repo continue to swirl around the gold market, ladies and gentlemen. So as countries begin to repatriate more of their gold from London, New York, everywhere, the development underscores a wider reorientation in global reserve practices. As monetary authorities prioritize physical control and jurisdictional certainty, you're seeing the world change. It's again, we went over this as why India said you can monetize your silver, why they don't like U.S. stablecoins. They think CBDCs are good. We don't. This is all my opinion, not financial advice. You got to understand something. Citi, they expect short-term selling pressure will have something to do with overall gold prices. They got a bunch of, I want to say, targets and things. When I take what I just went over and I apply it to everything I see right now, that is the biggest thing that you can take as a weather vane in this storm of chaos. Citi, they think, in their bullish midterm trajectory of around 5,000 an ounce, But you got to understand something. A lot of people right now are looking at metals to be a little depressed right now. Again, their base case, they see a grind to 5,000. Their bull case, they see 6,000 to 7,000, 2026, 2027. That's what, according to them, under stagflation and prolonged geopolitical stress. They got a bear case falling towards 4,000, but they have something that I'm going to go over with you right now. They got market structure equals small market, big moves. Ladies and gentlemen, the gold's physical market's too small to absorb the wealth shifts, what's happening. It's meaning small reallocations driven outside price moves. I believe this is going to happen with XRP as well. This creates both upside convexity and downside volatility risk. So what that basically means in English is there's not enough of it to go around if everybody jumps in to grab it. Again, I don't waste my time, watching TV. I look at financial war. Everything to me is chessboards. I follow, because the family office and the people that retain us in any capacity, this is why we work for them as what we are as financial mercenaries. That's why they don't get cut up like sushi. That is why we continue to perform day in, day out of this financial chaos. Again, a lot of things happening right now, but you're seeing markets being moved by shifts of money going from one place to another that has nothing to do with the overall trajectory of where asset prices are going. Again, most people are really, they're tired of hearing about oil. They're tired of hearing about this. They're tired of hearing about that. I understand it, but look, you got to understand something. Iran's economic survival hinges on minimal oil exports. They think that they can survive on 250,000 barrels at 85 barrel price is enough to maintain their government wages and maintain regime stability in the near term. But that stability, ladies and gentlemen, is coming at a cost. Their currency devaluation, inflation, physical strain, it's crushing them. They don't care. But a prolonged geopolitical stalemate risks deeper stagflation. So what you see overall, and I want to tie this into something that makes sense to me. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is at financial war. It began with gold trying to replace the U.S. Treasury system. If you go back to the Bancor, that whole thing, what we talked about, Cardano, the unit and the bricks in the West, stay with me right now because as oil creeping higher, yields keep creeping higher. I don't think the Fed's going to ease, ladies and gentlemen. I was around trading in 2008. I remember when oil peaked at 140, when Beijing was buying. Remember, stocks were on a high. They were ripping your face off rally. The Fed didn't ease in time to help with the great financial crisis as that started. But then the powers that be with the mortgage-backed securities, which is, that didn't even make sense. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying that we're going to have another great financial crisis. I think that's something the great recalibrating is coming. We call it in our offices Operation Recalibration. Recalibration. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is eerily similar, ladies and gentlemen. And it's starting. I'm amazed that nobody else is pointing this out yet, that they're not pointing the similarities to this again. So maybe we're really early talking about this. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But I lived through 08. I remember what happened. I remember the commodity bull markets leading to that. I remember pulling things out of the ground. That was the first concessions that we were developing. I remember all of it. And because it's burned into my memory, living through these financial wars as a veteran, and I got the bank accounts to prove it and the book of clients to prove it, and I really don't care because I'm here to help people that want to be here. That's why we're here. I could care less. I'm not a crypto influencer. I'm a financial mercenary. I love all the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. I love you all. We do this for you, the Wolf Pack. Someone in the comments can't believe why we don't have more subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't produce viral videos. We produce life-changing content that if you take advantage of, can show you a different perspective about the financial wars that we lived through. It could help open your mind, broaden your horizons, ladies and gentlemen. You make a living by what you make, but a life by what you give back to other people. But what I see right now reminds me of everything. And as oil markets are approaching a breaking point, as sustained Hormuz disruptions tighten physical supply, ladies and gentlemen, we are on a crash course for some more unraveling. And as far as I'm concerned, even without escalation, a prolonged geopolitical stalemate's enough to keep oil prices elevated, and it will reinforce inflation pressures and increasingly weigh on global risk appetite. We think Asia is going to crack first again. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn how to take advantage of everything I'm talking about, come and join the Crypto Republic Desk monthly. One good tip from the pits can easily pay for your entire year subscription. If you want to learn the deeper macro research and the trade craft of being a financial mercenary and learn how to take advantage of this, come and join over 535 active traders and investors in the Patreon, the Crypto Republic Desk monthly. I keep telling you this because risk appetite's running out of room to absorb all the oil gains. And I tell you this because banks, hedge funds, sovereigns, traders, They're taking advantage of this. This is like watching a tennis match. Back and forth, back and forth. But ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think of this. As the White House prepares for a longer Iran blockade and Hormuz traffic remains limited to rare, tightly managed bursts, there's no credible off-ramp in sight. Nobody can get off this Russian roulette, this game of chicken. POTUS recently meeting with Chevron and other energy firms about how to keep pressure on Iran while limiting damage to its consumers. That looks like an administration preparing for a prolonged campaign. That's what we believe. There's no resolution. Resolution's regime change there. Iran's reacting, and they're resorting to new tactics again, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we went over this, the appearance of a 29-year-old tanker at the Nasha Karg Islands assigned to Iran, trying to create extra floating storages and export floating to remain impeded. Ladies and gentlemen, I remember the first Trump administration. I remember working with so many family offices, sovereigns, hedge with so many people to try to lease as many oil tankers as they could to take delivery of oil when oil was around $0. We went all over the world, where the West Indies, St. Lucia, everywhere that we could find space to hoard oil because we knew that the cost to hold the oil storage would far be less expensive than trying to repurchase it somewhere else. And what I mean by trying to repurchase someone else, in English, what that means, if we buy the oil today, you take possession of it, it's going to cost a fee to hold and rent with storage, right? But down the road, when you can unload this, you're going to make a fortune. It was the best landlord synthetic derivative play we ever did. Oh, my God. And some of the people that still retain us to this day that first became clients of us back then to find how a financial mercenary can make use of these psychotically horrible situations that we're forced to live in because the powers that be don't care about us. Come and join us. But this is what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. They're running out of place to put it. The physical market's already behaving as if the closure of the strait will last. The crude exports, just the United States, they jumped above 6 million barrels a day. That's a record. Again, there's no room left to hoard it. Why I bring up what we did back then? Because people thought we were nuts, but it minted fortunes if you had the foresight to see. Most people are watching Dancing with the Stars or whatever they watch. I watch how to make money because the people that retain us any capacity, I can't fail. I rip my reputation every day. We risk it. So if you look at EIA reports, ladies and gentlemen, it's dropping because there's nowhere else to put it. If you look at gasoline and distillate inventories, they're also seasonally very tight for the same reason. There's no way to store oil. So it's a market seeing the U.S. plugging part of the gap left by the Hormuz disruption. It's not creating enough slack to solve the problem. So we believe there's 4 broad endgames for this. 1, a prolonged blockage of the strait with a flare-up, its base case, and keeps crude bid. 2, limited escalations through tighter enforcement or more attacks on shipping is the path to new highs. 3, major regional blowout is the tail risk, which would mean escalate to de-escalate patterns has spun out of control. 4, the only path that caps oil quickly is an interim de-escalation where increased passage through the strait resumes before any grand nuclear deal is reached. Ladies and gentlemen, that leaves a simple market conclusion. Oil does not need a re-escalation kinetic strikes to stay high. It just needs the current siege to outlast the market's hope for a fast resolution with depleting inventories tightening the physical market a little more each day. Every tanker delay and refinery shut-in is likely to be read as proof that the physical squeeze is worsening and the headwinds for risk appetite are growing. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to enjoy the rest of your weekend, but if you made it this far, do drop in a comment how long you've been a member of the Wolfpack, where you're from. Understand our republic, the Crypto Republic, our Wolfpacking channel, we don't do hype videos. I couldn't sit here and tell anyone this straight face that XRP is going to go to certain prices. I have price targets that I believe it's going to hit and measure, but I'm just never going to share that on YouTube or anyone else. I retain that for people that retain us any capacity, institutionally, family offices. That's something on another level. But I could tell you this, the people who have the tenacity, why we're financial mercenaries, why we don't care what other people think. In the future, if you can see through the chorus of chaos, you write down, take the transcript of everything I just said. This is probably the best video that we have ever made. You can see why when I said the east and west side of the tranche. I don't understand it. Anybody in their right mind can sit there and say certain things are going to happen. My logic for why XRP, the Anointed One, is designed and based off of financial warfare. It is not based on some kind of market cap. It ain't based on anything else that anyone's talking about. Because I have been a financial mercenary since I'm 15 years old. I don't look at things like anybody else who's on Wall Street. I look at things that were taught from me from people on the floor, the mercantile exchange, floor traders, very, very wealthy, old money families. Why this is changing. So as far as I'm concerned, I got a big shout out for everybody in the XRP Army in the community, but at this part of the XRP Army, this regiment, the Wolf Pack, we don't believe in price predictions. I would like to read about all of them, but at the end of the day, that is why our channel grows as it grows. That is why every member of the Wolf Pack we love. That is why we take the time to answer all the comments. That is why our Patreon is monstrously growing. That is why we are helping people make a difference every day in their life. Because one good tip from the pits can easily pay for your entire year subscription. Can help you give a different perspective on how to take advantage of the chaos. You don't just have to live through this and read about in the news. You could take advantage of all of this. So if you want to come and join over 535 active traders and investors in the Patreon, Crypto Republic Des Month. I love you all. I'll see you on the front lines. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. Always do your own research and consult a licensed financial advisor before making any investment decisions always. Remember, the game is changing, and those who understand it first will benefit the most. Make sure you're on the right side of it. You got two choices. You could be like the crowd, reacting after the move, rationalizing why they missed it, telling themselves they'll never let it happen again, or you can be the one who saw behind the curtain, the one who understood the infrastructure shift, the one who positioned early, not randomly, but intentionally. Because some moments in history are loud, but the ones that change everything are quiet. Right up until the moment they're not. And this is one of those moments. Do not blink, because the world is distracting you with noise, while XRP, the Anointed One, continues developing behind the scenes and building momentum in the broader digital asset landscape. Stay sharp, stay informed, accumulate knowledge. Your move now will be remembered. This is not the end of the story. This is just the beginning. If this opened your eyes, smash that like button, ring the bell. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Turn on notifications. Most importantly, subscribe to the Crypto Republic. We break down the major global banking trends shaping digital assets today, giving you content, clarity, and research you can use. Don't just watch history happen. Stay informed, stay ahead, stay in the Republic. I love you all. I'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your weekend.